The arid wind of Kandahar whipped across the forward operating base, stirring dust around Major Ryan Kessler's boots as he crossed the sun-scorched compound in Afghanistan. At 42, Ryan was a battle-hardened ranger, his 19-year career etched in covert ops across Fallujah, Mosul, and now his 5th tour. His broad shoulders carried the weight of command, his green eyes, sharp with the focus of a man who'd outsmarted death in a dozen war zones. After briefing his elite team for a night raid, he headed to the Combs tent, craving a connection to home. Back in Cedar Ridge, Colorado, a tight-knit mountain town where gossip spread faster than wildfire, his wife, Julia Bennett, and their kids, Mason 17 and Lily 15, awaited. Ryan anticipated Julia's emails, Mason's wrestling victories, Lily's violin recitals, maybe a snapshot of their border collie, Rusty. What he found instead was a betrayal that shook his core. In the Combs tent, the drone of generators filled the air, mingling with the faint crackle of radios. Ryan took the USB drive from Sergeant Lopez, the Combs chief, who slid it over with the casual, "Letters from home, Major." Ryan booted up his secure laptop, his weathered hands steady despite the long day. Julia's email topped the inbox, subject line, "We're done." His chest tightened, but he opened it, each word a gut punch. "Ryan, I'm finished waiting. You're a stranger to us. The kids need a real father, not a soldier. I've found someone who's here, who loves us. We're starting over. Don't come home, the locks are changed. Mason and Lily chose a new school over you. Goodbye." The words burned into his retina. 18 years of marriage, vows sworn in a Cedar Ridge chapel. Mason's first bike ride. Lily's finger paintings collapsing like a bombed-out building. Julia's claim that the kids rejected him was a knife to the heart, a lie he couldn't reconcile with the family he'd fought for. Ryan's pulse raced, but rage didn't take over. Instead, a surgical calm settled in, the kind that had guided him through ambushes and eads. Julia's email wasn't raw emotion, it was calculated, rehearsed, like an enemy's feint. He'd survived by reading intentions, and this reeked of a deeper plan. He typed a 2-word reply, "Message received." Then, he forwarded the email to his lawyer, Diane Ellison, a no-nonsense attorney in Boulder who'd managed his family's trust. No note, just the raw text. Ryan shut the laptop, his jaw clenched, and strode to the briefing room, where his 6-man team waited for orders on a high-risk extraction. "We move at 0400, he said, voice like steel, masking the storm inside. His men, brothers forged in fire, rotted, trusting the leader who'd never faltered. Alone in his quarters, Ryan sat on his cot, the email's venom replaying. Julia's stranger jab hurt because it held a shard of truth. Tours had stolen years, birthdays missed, recitals watched on grainy video. But he'd Skyped weekly, sent handwritten letters, poured every dollar into their Cedar Ridge home. He'd built a future, or thought he had. Memories surfaced. Julia's smile at their honeymoon cabin, her silence during his last leave, the odd bank alerts he'd dismissed. Had he missed the signs? Ryan locked the thoughts away, compartmentalizing like he did classified ops. The mission was priority, his team's lives hung on him. But as he checked his rifle, a new objective crystallized: expose the truth, shield his kids, reclaim what was his. Julia thought an email could erase him. She'd underestimated the warrior she married. In Cedar Ridge, Julia stood in their airy, pine-paneled kitchen, a martini in hand, as her lover, Vic Randall, a slick venture capitalist, lounged nearby. Vic, 46, radiated the confidence of a man who'd bankrolled the town's new ski resort. "You sent it?" he asked, his tone smooth but expectant. Julia nodded, swirling her drink. "He won't see it for days. Military networks are spotty." Vic grinned, his hand grazing her wrist. "The kids? At Aspen Grove Academy. Full rides. Courtesy of your board pull," Julia said, her voice steady but eyes flickering. Mason pushed back. "But Lily's thrilled. Post-divorce, we'll settle at the mountain lodge." Vic lifted his glass. "To fresh starts." Julia clinked hers, but a shadow crossed her face. 18 years is heavy to wipe away. Vic's gaze sharpened. 18 years of playing second to the army. You're free now. He didn't mention the year-long scheme siphoning Ryan's accounts, shaping the kids' view of their absent dad, prepping the lodge as their hideout. Julia didn't need to know the depth of his manipulation. Not yet. Ryan's email to Diane lit a fuse. In her Boulder office, Diane, 60, read the forwarded message, her blue eyes narrowing behind bifocals. She'd known Ryan since his first deployment, handled his parents' estate, and flagged Julia's odd withdrawals last year. "This is war," she murmured, dialing private investigator Nick Torres, a former ATF agent. "Nick, it's Diane. Ryan Kessler's got trouble. Launch the contingency plan, full surveillance on Julia Bennett and her contacts." Diane's mind churned. Julia's email was a chess move, not a meltdown, and Ryan's curt reply signaled he was already in combat mode. Cedar Ridge's rumor mill would soon hum, but Ryan was positioning his pieces, and Diane would ensure his enemies never saw the checkmate coming. In the dim glow of Cedar Ridge's only diner, the Pinewood Grill, Ryan Kessler sat in a corner booth, his coffee untouched as Nick Torres slid a manila envelope across the scratched Formica table. It was 3 days since Julia's email had blindsided him in Kandahar, and Ryan, still on deployment, had tasked Nick, his private investigator, with digging into her life. The diner's jukebox played a mournful country tune, its twang blending with the clink of dishes and whispers of locals who eyed Ryan's weathered fatigues. Cedar Ridge was a town where secrets didn't stay buried, and Nick's envelope held the first shovel. "You're not gonna like this," Nick warned, his ex-ATF instincts sharp in his low tone. Ryan's green eyes, hardened by years of war, met Nick's. "Show me." Nick opened the envelope, revealing photos that hit Ryan like a sniper's round. Julia, his wife of 18 years, was in the arms of Vic Randall, Cedar Ridge's venture capitalist kingpin. Outside the sleek new ski resort Vic had bankrolled. One shot caught them kissing in Vic's Range Rover, parked behind the town's library. Another showed Julia laughing with Vic at a gala, her hand on his chest, while Mason and Lily were nowhere in sight. "This isn't a fling," Nick said, pulling out bank records. "They've been at it for 9 months, maybe more. Vic's been funneling money from your joint accounts, 300,000, so far into a trust for Aspen Grove Academy, where Mason and Lily are enrolled. Scholarships, my ass. It's a front." Ryan's jaw tightened, his mind flashing to Julia's email. "The kids chose a new school over you." The lie burned hotter now. Nick spread out more documents, emails between Julia and Vic, intercepted by his cyber contact. One from Julia read, "Ryan's gone till spring. We'll have the lodge ready by then. The kids will adjust." Vic's reply was chilling, "Keep them hating him. We need them on our side for the divorce." Ryan's fist clenched, crumpling a photo. Julia wasn't just cheating, she was weaponizing his kids, painting him as the absent father while Vic played hero. The bank records showed withdrawals Ryan hadn't authorized, tied to Vic's shell company, Peak Pulse Ventures. "They're planning to sell your house," Nick added, pointing to a real estate listing draft. "Already got a buyer lined up for the lodge move post-divorce." Vic's got Cedar Ridge's mayor in his pocket to fast-track it. Ryan's rage simmered, but his ranger training kept it caged. He saw the battlefield clearly. Julia and Vic had orchestrated a takeover, siphoning his money, manipulating his kids, and betting he'd be too far away to fight back. "What else?" he asked, voice low but lethal. Nick hesitated, then slid over a transcript of a call between Julia and Mason. "Your dad's too busy playing soldier," Julia had said. "Vic's here for us, Mason. He's family now." Mason's reply was a gut wrench. "If Dad doesn't care, why should I?" Ryan's heart cracked, but he didn't flinch. Julia was poisoning his son, and Vic was the venom. Back in Cedar Ridge, Julia sipped chamomile tea in the mountain lodge Vic had gifted her, its floor-to-ceiling windows framing the snow-dusted Rockies. Vic paced, phone pressed to his ear, finalizing a deal to flip Ryan's house. "The divorce papers are ready," he told Julia, hanging up. "File them next week, and we're golden. Ryan's stuck in a war zone, he can't touch us." Julia nodded, but her fingers tightened around her mug. "Mason's still asking about his dad," she said. Vic's smile was cold. Tell him Ryan abandoned you. Kids eat that up. Julia's gaze drifted to a photo of Mason and Lily on the mantle, taken at last year's town fair with Ryan. Guilt flickered, but Vic's hand on her shoulder snuffed it. We're their future, he said. Ryan's the past. Ryan, still in Kandahar, called Diane Ellison from a secure line in the Combs tent, the hum of drones outside mirroring his churning mind. It's worse than I thought, he told her, summarizing Nick's findings. Diane, in her Boulder office, listened, her bifocals glinting as she jotted notes. This isn't just infidelity, Ryan. It's a calculated heist. Vic's a predator, he's done this before. I found 2 women in Denver. He fleeced the same way. She outlined a plan. File a preemptive motion to freeze all joint assets, citing Julia's unauthorized withdrawals, subpoena Vic's financials through Peak Pulse Ventures, and gather more evidence to prove parental alienation. We'll hit them publicly, Diane said. Cedar Ridge loves a scandal. Let's make Julia and Vic squirm. Ryan agreed, his voice steady but laced with fury. I want Julia to know I'm coming for her lies. And Vic, he's not walking away clean. Diane paused. You're still overseas, Ryan. Stay focused, come home alive. I'll handle the opening shots. Ryan hung up, staring at a photo of Mason and Lily taped to his locker, their smiles from a fishing trip to summers ago. Julia thought distance weakened him, but it only sharpened his aim. He sent Nick a text. Dig deeper on Vic. Find his pressure points. Then, he prepped for the night raid, his mind split between war and the homefront battle. Cedar Ridge's quaint streets would soon buzz with whispers of Julia's affair and Vic's schemes, but Ryan was already planning his counterstrike, a soldier's precision aimed at the heart of betrayal. At the Pinewood Grill, the waitress, a Cedar Ridge native, leaned close to a regular, her voice low. Heard Julia Bennett's cozying up with Vic Randall. Poor Ryan's still fighting overseas. The regular shook his head. That Kessler family's about to implode. The rumor mill was turning, but Ryan's war had just begun, and Julia and Vic were in his crosshairs. The fluorescent lights of Diane Ellison's Boulder law office buzzed softly, casting sharp shadows across her mahogany desk as she pored over Nick Torres' latest report. It was a week since Ryan Kessler had forwarded Julia Bennett's devastating email from Kandahar, and the evidence of her affair with Vic Randall, coupled with their scheme to siphon Ryan's assets and alienate his kids, Mason and Lily had lit a fire under Diane's legal arsenal. At 60, Diane was a veteran attorney, her silver hair and piercing blue eyes masking a ruthless strategist who dismantled corporate fraud and messy divorces alike. Cedar Ridge's small-town charm couldn't hide the rot Nick had uncovered, and Diane was ready to strike. This is a full-scale ambush, she told Nick over a secure line, her voice steady but edged with urgency. Ryan's fighting a war overseas, but we're opening a second front here. Nick, holed up in a nondescript motel on Cedar Ridge's outskirts, relayed his findings through an encrypted laptop. Julia and Vic are moving fast, he said, his ex-ATF instincts kicking in. They've transferred another $150,000 from Ryan's accounts to Peak Pulse Ventures, Vic's shell company. I've got audio of Julia telling Lily that Ryan chose the army over love. Vic's pushing her to file for divorce by Friday, claiming sole custody. They're betting Ryan's deployment keeps him out of the fight. Diane's pen tapped the desk, her mind racing. Nick's surveillance had also caught Vic meeting Cedar Ridge's mayor at a backroom poker game, greasing palms to expedite the sale of Ryan's house. And the kids? Diane asked. Nick's tone darkened. Mason's shutting down, barely talks to Julia. Lily's confused, asking why Ryan hasn't called. Julia's blocking his attempts, rerouting his Skype to a dead server. Diane's strategy crystallized. 8 months ago, during Ryan's last leave, he'd sat in her office, uneasy about Julia's late-night texts and unexplained charges. Just a precaution, he'd said, signing off on a contingency plan, silent monitoring of joint accounts, a shadow trust to safeguard his military pension, and Nick on retainer for rapid response. Now, that foresight was Ryan's lifeline. Diane drafted an emergency motion to freeze all joint assets, citing suspected financial misconduct by Julia. She also prepared a subpoena for Peak Pulse Ventures records, targeting Vic's offshore accounts in the Caymans. "We'll bury them in paperwork," she told Nick. "But I want more eyes on Vic 24/7. If he's bribing the mayor, he's got other skeletons." In Kandahar, Ryan crouched in a dusty command tent, the hum of a Predator drone outside blending with the static of his SecureSat phone. Diane's update crackled through. "Assets locked as of 0800 MST. Julia tried accessing the primary account this morning, denied. Vic's lawyer's already sniffing around, but we've got the upper hand." Ryan's green eyes narrowed, his ranger discipline channeling fury into focus. "What about Mason and Lily?" he asked, voice low. Diane hesitated. "They're at Aspen Grove Academy, isolated. Julia's feeding them lies, but Nick's working on proof of alienation. Stay sharp. Ryan, your team needs you." Ryan nodded, though Diane couldn't see. "Keep the pressure on. I'm not losing my kids to Vic's game." Back in Cedar Ridge, Julia stood in the marble-floored foyer of Vic's ski resort office, her heels clicking nervously as she confronted him. "The accounts are frozen," she hissed, clutching her phone, which showed a declined transaction for Lily's tuition. "How?" "Ryan's in Afghanistan." Vic, behind his glass desk, forced a calm smile, though his knuckles whitened. "He must have gotten your email and called a lawyer. It's a bluff. Soldiers don't move this fast." But doubt not at Vic. He'd researched Ryan, decorated ranger, modest savings, devoted dad, despite deployments. Nothing suggested this level of preemptive warfare. "What now?" Julia demanded, her voice cracking. Vic leaned forward, eyes cold. "File the divorce papers tomorrow. My attorney will unfreeze the accounts. We stick to the plan. Lodge, kids, new life." Unbeknownst to them, Nick's team had bugged Vic's office, a tiny Mick hidden in a potted fern capturing every word. Nick, in his motel, listened live. Texting Diane. Vic's panicking. Mentioned Cayman transfers and a backup fund. "I'm tailing him tonight." Diane, in Boulder, smiled grimly, filing a second motion to flag Vic's offshore accounts with the IRS. She also leaked a tip to Cedar Ridge's local paper, the Ridge Gazette, hinting at financial irregularities tied to the ski resort. By morning, whispers of Vic's dealings buzzed at the Pinewood Grill, where locals swapped theories over pancakes. "Heard Vic's in bed with the mayor," one said. "Poor Ryan Kessler's getting screwed while he's dodging bullets," another muttered. Ryan, prepping for a dawn raid in Kandahar, received a secure email from Nick, photos of Vic slipping an envelope to the mayor, plus a transcript of Julia coaching Mason to forget Dad's promises. Rage flared, but Ryan channeled it, texting Diane, "Escalate. I want Vic's empire shaking by the time I'm back." Diane replied, "Consider it done." Communication blackout advised focus on survival. Ryan pocketed the phone, his mind a split screen, the desert mission and the homefront war. Julia and Vic thought distance was their ally, but Ryan's silent machine was grinding, fueled by a father's love and a soldier's wrath. Cedar Ridge's gossip was just the spark. Soon, the town would burn with the truth of their betrayal. The crisp autumn air of Cedar Ridge stung Ryan Kessler's face as he stepped off a Greyhound bus at the town's lone depot, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder. It was 2 weeks since Julia's email had gutted him in Kandahar, and Ryan, leveraging Ranger connections, had secured an early return to the States, cutting his deployment short by 6 weeks. His weathered combat boots hit the pavement, but his green eyes scanned the sleepy streets like a predator on recon. Cedar Ridge's quaint storefronts, bakery, hardware store, Pinewood Grill glowed under amber streetlights, oblivious to the war brewing in its heart. Ryan hadn't told Julia he was back, nor Vic Randall, whose affair with his wife and plot to steal his kids and fortune had been exposed by Nick Torres' surveillance. This was his opening move, silent, unseen, lethal. Ryan checked into the Elk Lodge Motel, a rundown spot on Cedar Ridge's edge, paying cash to avoid a paper trail. In his sparse room, he spread Nick's latest intel across the chipped table, fresh photos of Julia and Vic dining at the ski resort's upscale bistro, Vic's hand on her thigh, a bank alert showing Julia's failed attempt to withdraw $200,000 after Diane Ellison froze their accounts, and a recorded call where Julia told Mason, "Your dad's too far gone to care, honey. Vic's our rock now." Ryan's fist clenched, the plastic table creaking. Mason's silence on the recording cut deeper than Julia's lies. His son, once his shadow on fishing trips, was slipping away. But Ryan wasn't here to mourn. He was here to fight. Diane met him at the motel at midnight, her silver hair tucked under a scarf to dodge prying eyes. "You're a ghost, Ryan," she said, handing him a burner phone. "No one knows you're stateside, not even the kids. Keep it that way." She updated him. The asset freeze had thrown Julia and Vic into chaos, with Vic's lawyer scrambling to dodge the IRS probe Diane had triggered. Nick's bugs in Vic's office had caught him raging about Kessler's lawyer and a Cayman account glitch. Diane's subpoena for Peak Pulse Ventures was days from approval, and the Ridge Gazette had run a front-page story on ski resort financial concerns, sparking whispers at Cedar Ridge's coffee shops and church pews. "Julia's cracking," Diane said. "She called my office, demanding to know why the accounts are locked. I stonewalled her." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "What about Mason and Lily?" Diane's eyes softened. "They're at Aspen Grove Academy, an hour north. Julia's visits are sporadic. She's too busy with Vic. Nick's got a contact at the school, says Mason's grades are slipping, and Lily's withdrawn. Julia's told them you approved their transfer, that you wanted space. It's tearing them up." Ryan's heart twisted, but his voice stayed cold. "She's using my kids as pawns. I need to see them, Diane, but not yet. First, we tighten the noose." Diane agreed, outlining the next phase. Nick would ramp up surveillance, planting GPS trackers on Vic's Range Rover and Julia's Audi. Diane would file a motion alleging parental alienation, demanding supervised visits for Julia pending investigation. Ryan's plan was surgical. He texted Nick from the burner, "Triple the pressure. Record every call. Tail Vic's meetings. Get me inside Aspen Grove's visitor logs." Nick replied, "On it. Vic's meeting the mayor again tomorrow. Shady deal. Smells like a bribe." Ryan pocketed the phone, his mind mapping the battlefield. He wouldn't storm Julia's house or confront Vic at the resort, not yet. Direct moves risked tipping them off, letting them spin more lies to Mason and Lily. Instead, he'd wage a shadow war, letting Cedar Ridge's rumor mill do the heavy lifting. At the Pinewood Grill, locals were already buzzing. "Julia's flaunting Vic like Ryan's dead," one said. "Bet Kessler's lawyers got dirt," another whispered. Ryan, invisible, was the ghost fueling the fire. Julia, unaware of Ryan's return, stood in the ski resort's glass-walled conference room, her manicured nails digging into her palms as Vic berated his accountant over speakerphone. "Fix the Cayman transfers, or we're screwed," he snapped, his polished charm fraying. Julia's phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Why's Dad not calling? You said he'd check in." Her stomach churned. She'd blocked Ryan's Skype, deleted his voicemails, told the kids he'd moved on. "He's busy, Mason," she texted back, her fingers trembling. Vic, catching her knees, softened his tone. "Focus, Julia. The divorce filing's tomorrow. Once it's done, Ryan's out of the picture, and we're untouchable." Julia nodded, but doubt gnawed. Ryan's silence felt wrong to controlled, too quiet for the man who'd survived war zones. Nick, parked in an unmarked van outside the resort, watched through binoculars as Julia left, her face pale. His earpiece crackled with the new recording. Vic telling the mayor, "Double the payment and the house sale's yours." Nick smirked, saving the file for Diane. Ryan, back at the motel, reviewed Nick's latest drop, a video of Julia crying alone in her Audi, muttering, "What if Ryan knows?" Ryan's eyes darkened. She sensed the trap closing, but didn't know he was already in Cedar Ridge, orchestrating her unraveling. He slipped on a hoodie, blending into the night, and headed to a payphone to leave an anonymous tip for the Ridge Gazette. "Check Vic Randall's mayor TIs. Kessler's not the only one getting played." By dawn, Cedar Ridge's gossip would boil, and Ryan's shadow war would tighten its grip, setting the stage for his kids to learn the truth. The rolling hills outside Cedar Ridge glowed golden under the late October sun as Ryan Kessler drove a rented pickup toward Aspen Grove Academy, a prestigious boarding school nestled in Colorado's northern valleys. 3 days had passed since his covert return to the States, and the weight of Julia Bennett's betrayal, her affair with Victor Vic Randall, her lies to their kids, Mason and Lily, and her plot to steal his fortune pressed harder with every mile. Ryan's green eyes, sharp from years of ranger missions, stayed fixed on the road, but his mind churned with Nick Torres' latest intel. Julia had visited the school only once this week, leaving Mason sullen and Lily tearful. Today, Ryan would see his kids, not as the absent father Julia painted, but as the dad who'd fight hell to protect them. His burner phone buzzed with a text from Diane Ellison, "Visitor clearance secured. Julia's in town with Vic. You've got a 2-hour window. Be careful." Ryan parked in the school's visitor lot, his hoodie and ball cap masking the soldier's posture that locals might recognize. Aspen Grove's ivy-covered halls and manicured lawns screamed privilege, a far cry from Cedar Ridge's modest streets, and Ryan's stomach twisted knowing Vic's dirty money had funded his kids' enrollment. He signed in as Art Thompson, a precaution Nick had arranged through a school staff contact. The receptionist, unaware of the drama, led him to a private meeting room where Mason and Lily waited. Ryan's heart pounded as the door opened. Mason, 17, slouched in a chair, his wrestler's build tense, eyes dark with resentment. Lily, 15, sat cross-legged, clutching a violin case, her face pale and eyes red from crying. "Who's this?" Mason snapped, then froze as Ryan pulled off his cap, revealing the familiar scar above his brow. "Dad?" Lily whispered, her voice breaking. Ryan knelt, arms open, and she ran to him, sobbing into his shoulder. Mason stayed rooted, fists balled, his glare a mix of anger and confusion. "You're supposed to be in Afghanistan," he said, voice low. "Mom said you didn't want us." Ryan's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone steady. "I came back for you both. Your mom's been lying, and I've got proof." He pulled a tablet from his bag, loaded with Nick's evidence, photos of Julia and Vic kissing months before Ryan's deployment, bank records showing Vic's theft from their college funds, and a recorded call where Julia told Vic, "Make sure Mason hates him. It's easier that way." Ryan played the audio, watching Mason's face harden and Lily's eyes widen in shock. "Mom said you agreed to send us here," Lily said, voice trembling. "That you wanted to focus on the army." Ryan shook his head, handing her a letter he'd written in Kandahar, dated before Julia's email. "I never signed off on this school. I wrote to you every week. Julia blocked my messages." Mason, still standing, snatched the tablet, scrolling through emails between Julia and Vic, plotting to sell the family home. "She told me you stopped caring," he muttered, his voice cracking. Ryan met his son's eyes. "I've been fighting for you my whole life, Mason. Every mission, every dollar, it was for you and Lily. Vic's using your mom to take it all, and they're using you to hurt me." Lily clung to Ryan, tears streaming. "Why would mom do this?" Ryan exhaled, choosing honesty. "She's lost, Lily. Vic's got her believing he's the answer, but he's a con. I'm not here to trash your mom. I want you to know the truth so you can choose who you trust." Mason slammed the tablet down, his anger shifting from Ryan to Julia. "She lied to us for months," he growled. "Vic's been at the house, acting like our dad." Ryan nodded, letting the pain sink in. "You don't have to decide now, but I'm not going anywhere. You tell me what you want. Stay here, come home with me, anything. I'll make it happen." Back in Cedar Ridge, Julia sat in Vic's Range Rover outside the ski resort, her phone lighting up with a school alert. Visitor logged for Mason or Lily. Her pulse raced. Vic had assured her Ryan was overseas, but the timing felt off. "It's probably a counselor," Vic said, dismissing her panic, but his eyes darted nervously. Nick, watching from a nearby van, caught their exchange on a long-range mic, texting Ryan, "Julia's spooked. Vic's pushing her to file divorce papers tonight." Ryan, leaving the school, replied, "Let them squirm. Send Diane the kids' statements." Mason and Lily had agreed to record video testimonies for Diane, detailing Julia's lies about Ryan's absence and Vic's role. Mason's voice shook as he said, Mom told us Dad didn't want us, but he's here now. Lily added, I want to go home with Dad. Ryan drove back to the Elk Lodge Motel, the kids' words echoing. He'd given them space to process, promising to return tomorrow. Diane called, her voice grim. The kids' videos are gold. Courts hate parental alienation. I'm filing for emergency custody tomorrow, citing Julia's manipulation and Vic's financial fraud. The Ridge Gazette just published a piece linking Vic to mayor bribes. Cedar Ridge is erupting. Ryan stared out the motel window at the town's twinkling lights, his heart heavy but resolved. Julia and Vic thought they'd broken his family, but Mason and Lily's trust was the first crack in their empire. Ryan wasn't just a soldier anymore, he was a father reclaiming his own, and Cedar Ridge's gossip mill would amplify his counterstrike. The neon sign of Cedar Ridge's Pinewood Grill flickered in the dusk, casting a dim glow over the parking lot where Nick Torres sat in his unmarked van, his laptop open to a live feed from Vic Randall's ski resort office. It was 5 days since Ryan Kessler's emotional reunion with Mason and Lily at Aspen Grove Academy, where he'd shattered Julia Bennett's lies with hard evidence of her affair and Vic's theft. Now, Ryan's shadow war was escalating, and Vic, the slick venture capitalist who'd bankrolled Julia's betrayal, was unraveling under the weight of Diane Ellison's legal onslaught and Nick's relentless surveillance. Cedar Ridge's gossip mill churned hotter than ever, and Nick's latest intel was dynamite. Vic's empire was cracking, and he was dragging Julia down with him. Inside the van, Nick's earpiece crackled with the fresh recording from the mic hidden in Vic's office fern. The IRS is sniffing my accounts. Vic barked to his accountant over a scrambled line. Kessler's lawyer froze everything. How's she moving this fast? His voice, once smooth as silk, was ragged, betraying panic. Nick smirked, typing notes. Diane's subpoena had hit Peak Pulse Ventures, Vic's shell company, exposing $1.2 million in unauthorized transfers from Ryan's accounts. The IRS, tipped by Diane's filings, was now auditing Vic's offshore accounts in the Caymans, and the Ridge Gazette had doubled down with the scathing expose. Ski resort tycoon tied to bribery, fraud. Cedar Ridge's diners and barbershops buzzed with outrage. Vic, once the town's golden boy, was now its pariah. Nick's surveillance had also caught Vic's desperate moves. GPS trackers on his Range Rover showed late-night drives to a Denver law firm, where he met a shady fixer named Carl Weaver. Nick's bugs recorded Vic ordering Weaver to bury Kessler's lawyer and find dirt on the mayor to flip the narrative. But Diane was untouchable, her reputation ironclad, and the mayor, spooked by the Ridge Gazette's bribe allegations, had cut contact. Nick sent Ryan a secure email with the evidence, adding a bombshell: 2 former Peak Pulse employees, fired for questioning Vic's books, had contacted Diane, offering to testify about his history of fraud. Vic's bleeding, Nick wrote. 1 push, and he's done. Ryan, holed up in the Elk Lodge Motel, read Nick's email under the motel's flickering lamp, his green eyes cold with resolve. Mason and Lily's video testimonies, recorded after their reunion, had strengthened Diane's emergency custody filing, and the court had scheduled a hearing in 3 days. But Ryan wanted more than legal wins. He wanted Vic's world in ashes. He called Diane on his burner phone, the Cedar Ridge night, silent outside. Hit Vic harder, he said, voice low. Leak the employee testimonies to the press. I want Cedar Ridge to spit on his name. Diane, in her Boulder office, nodded, her bifocals glinting. Already on it. I've got a contact at the Denver Post. By tomorrow, Vic's face will be statewide news. But Julia's spiraling. She's called my office twice, begging for a deal. Vic's pushing her to run. In Cedar Ridge, Julia stood in the ski resort's deserted lobby, her coat pulled tight against the chill as she overheard Vic's frantic call to Weaver. If the IRS digs deeper, I'm finished, he shouted, unaware of Nick's mic. Julia's heart raced. Vic had promised wealth, freedom, a new life with Mason and Lily, but now, his empire was crumbling, and her lies were public. The Ridge Gazette's latest issue, left on a lobby table, screamed, Randall's fraud rocks, Cedar Ridge Kessler family betrayed. Locals at the Pinewood Grill shunned her, whispering, "Sold out Ryan for that crook." Julia's phone buzzed with the text from Mason. "Dad showed us the truth. Why'd you lie?" She stared, unable to reply, her hands shaking as Vic's voice grew louder. "We need to leave, Julia," he snapped, slamming his phone down. "Tonight? Forget the kids, they're Kesslers now." Julia's breath caught. Abandon Mason and Lily? The thought tore at her, but Vic's grip on her life, his promises, his threats felt inescapable. "I can't just leave them," she whispered, tears welling. Vic's eyes narrowed, his charm gone. "You're in too deep. If you stay, the IRS and Kessler's lawyer will bury you with me." Julia flinched, memories of her kids' laughter with Ryan flashing, moments she'd traded for Vic's lies. She didn't know Ryan was in Cedar Ridge, orchestrating this collapse, or that Nick's van was parked 100 yards away, recording Vic's ultimatum. Diane, in Boulder, executed Ryan's orders with precision. She leaked the employee testimonies to the Denver Post, which ran a damning headline, "Cedar Ridge Tycoon's Fraud Empire Implodes." By noon, Vic's ski resort stock plummeted 30%, and investors pulled funding, spooked by fraud allegations. Nick, tailing Vic's Range Rover, caught him speeding to a private airstrip, a duffel bag stuffed with cash in the back seat. He texted Ryan, "Vic's planning to bolt. Julia's with him, is coerced. Your call." Ryan, staring at Mason and Lily's photo taped to his motel mirror, texted back, "Let him run. Tip the feds. I want him trapped." Nick nodded, forwarding Vic's GPS data to an FBI contact Diane had looped in, citing interstate fraud. Cedar Ridge's streets hummed with scandal as locals gathered at the Pinewood Grill, swapping stories. "Vic's done for," a barber said, clipping hair. "Heard the feds are watching him." A waitress added, "Julia's gotta be ashamed, dragging those Kessler kids through this." Ryan, still a ghost in their midst, felt the tide turning. Vic's downfall was imminent, and Julia's unraveling was breaking her hold on Mason and Lily. But Ryan's war wasn't over. He needed his kids safe, Julia accountable, and Vic in cuffs before he'd rest. The Cedar Ridge Community Center, a squat brick building draped in autumn leaves, buzzed with tension as Ryan Kessler stood outside its double doors, his breath visible in the chilly November air. It was 2 days since Vic Randall's empire began crumbling under IRS audits and the Denver Post's fraud expos, leaving Julia Bennett, Ryan's estranged wife, teetering on the edge. Today was the emergency custody hearing for Mason and Lily, Ryan's kids, whose video testimonies had exposed Julia's lies about his absence and her affair with Vic. Ryan, still a ghost in Cedar Ridge's gossip-soaked streets, adjusted his tie, his green eyes steady, but inside, Mason and Lily would face their mother in court, and their choice, Ryan or Julia, would reshape their family forever. Inside the courtroom, Diane Ellison, Ryan's lawyer, arranged her files with surgical precision, her silver hair gleaming under fluorescent lights. Mason, 17, sat rigidly in a suit, his wrestler's frame tense, while Lily, 15, clutched her violin case, her eyes darting nervously. Julia sat across the aisle, her face pale, her designer coat a stark contrast to the anguish in her eyes. Vic was absent. Nick Torres' latest report confirmed he'd fled to a Denver safe house, dodging FBI agents tipped by Ryan's team. The judge, a stern woman named Clara Holt, called the hearing to order. "This is about the best interests of Mason and Lily Kessler," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "Their statements will weigh heavily." Mason stood first, his voice steady but laced with pain. "My mom told us Dad didn't want us, that he chose the army over family," he said, glancing at Julia, who flinched. "But Dad showed us proof, letters he sent, calls she blocked. She lied to make us hate him, and Vic helped her steal our college funds." The courtroom hushed, Cedar Ridge locals in the gallery whispering. Lily went next, her voice trembling but clear. "I thought Dad abandoned us, but he came back. Mom made us think Vic was better, but he's not our dad. I want to live with Dad." Julia's hand flew to her mouth, a sob escaping as the judge's pen scratched notes. Diane presented the evidence. Nick's recordings of Julia coaching the kids to resent Ryan, bank records of Vic's theft, and the Ridge Gazette articles detailing Vic's fraud. Julia Bennett engaged in parental alienation and financial misconduct, Diane argued, her tone unrelenting. Ryan Kessler, despite active deployment, has fought to protect his children. Julia's lawyer, a harried man named Paul Grayson, stammered, citing her emotional distress and love for her kids, but the kids' testimonies were damning. Judge Holt turned to Julia. Mrs. Bennett, do you have anything to say? Julia stood, her voice breaking. I thought I was giving them a better life. Vic promised. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Her eyes met Mason's, then Lily's, but both looked away, their trust shattered. Ryan, watching from the back, felt no victory, only a hollow ache. Julia's collapse was justice, but it broke the mother his kids once adored. The judge deliberated briefly, then ruled, temporary custody granted to Ryan Kessler, pending final review. Supervised visits for Julia Bennett. Mason exhaled, gripping Lily's hand, while Julia sank into her chair, tears streaming. Outside, Cedar Ridge's rumor mill exploded. Locals at the Pinewood Grill swapped stories. Julia's done for, one said. Those kids picked Ryan, and she's got nothing left. Later, at the Elk Lodge Motel, Ryan sat with Mason and Lily, their bags packed to move into a rental Diane had secured nearby. You didn't have to choose me, Ryan said, his voice soft. I just wanted you to know the truth. Mason shrugged, his tough facade cracking. You showed up, Dad. Mom didn't. Lily hugged him, whispering, don't leave again. Ryan's throat tightened. Never. He texted Nick. Kids are with me. Track Vic's next move. Nick replied, FBI's closing in. He's cornered. Julia, alone in the family home she'd once shared with Ryan, stood in the kitchen, the silence deafening. Her phone was flooded with texts from Cedar Ridge friends, some pitying, most condemning. The Denver Post's latest headline, Cedar Ridge fraudster flees, wife left in ruin, sat on the counter, Vic's face plastered beside hers. She'd lost Mason, Lily, her reputation, and Vic, who'd abandoned her to save himself. Memories flooded Ryan teaching Mason to fish, Lily's first recital, moments she'd traded for Vic's lies. She dialed Diane's office, her voice hoarse. Tell Ryan I won't fight the custody. I just want to see them someday. Diane, in Boulder, noted the call, her tone neutral. I'll pass it on. Get a lawyer, Julia. You'll need one. Ryan, driving Mason and Lily to their new home, glanced at them in the rearview mirror, their faces a mix of relief and pain. Cedar Ridge's twinkling lights faded behind, but the town's whispers followed. Julia's broken, a waitress said at the grill. Ryan's got his kids, but she's got nobody. Ryan's war had won its biggest battle, but the cost was etched in his kids' eyes. Vic was still out there, and Julia's surrender was only the start. Ryan gripped the wheel, ready for the final fight, knowing his family fractured but his was worth every scar. The Denver skyline loomed gray against a November drizzle as Ryan Kessler pulled his rented pickup into an alley behind a rundown warehouse, his pulse steady but his green eyes sharp with intent. It was 3 days since Mason and Lily chose him over Julia Bennett in Cedar Ridge's custody hearing, a victory that shattered Julia and left Vic Randall, her lover and Ryan's betrayer, scrambling to evade the FBI. Nick Torres' latest intel, relayed via burner phone, had pinned Vic to this warehouse, a bolt hole where he was hiding with a stash of cash and forged documents, planning to flee to Mexico. Ryan, fueled by months of Vic's schemes to steal his kids and fortune, wasn't here for negotiation. This was the endgame, and he'd face Vic man to man. Nick met Ryan in the alley, his ex-at frame, tense under a black jacket. FBI's 20 minutes out, he whispered, handing Ryan an earpiece. Vic's inside with one guy hired muscle armed. I've got eyes on the exits. Nick's surveillance had tracked Vic's Range Rover here after he ditched Julia in Cedar Ridge, where she now faced community scorn and a looming IRS probe. Ryan nodded, his ranger training kicking in. I go in alone. Keep the feds back until I'm done. Nick hesitated, then clapped his shoulder. Don't do anything stupid, Kessler. Your kids need you. Ryan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, slipping through a rusted side door into the warehouse's gloom. Inside, the air was thick with dust and motor oil, crates stacked high under flickering fluorescence. Vic stood at a folding table, shoving papers into a duffel, his polished suit rumpled, his face haggard. A burly guard lounged nearby, a pistol on his hip. Ryan stepped into the light, his voice low and lethal. "Going somewhere, Vic?" Vic froze, his eyes widening as he recognized Ryan's scarred face. "Kessler? You're supposed to be..." Ryan cut him off, advancing. "In Afghanistan? Out of your way? You underestimated me." The guard reached for his gun, but Ryan's stare pinned him. "Touch it, and you're done." The guard hesitated, sensing Ryan's coiled menace, and backed off. Vic forced a smirk, but sweat beaded his brow. "What's this, Ryan? Revenge? You got your kids, your money safe. Walk away." Ryan's laugh was cold. "You slept with my wife, turned my kids against me, stole $1.2 million, and bribed half of Cedar Ridge. You don't get to walk." He tossed a flash drive onto the table. Nick's compilation of Vic's crimes, bank records, recorded calls, employee testimonies. "The FBI's got copies. You're finished." Vic's smirk faded, his hands trembling as he glanced at the drive. "I can pay you," he stammered. 10 times what I took. Name your price." Ryan stepped closer, towering over him. "My price is you in cuffs, Vic. You broke my family. Now you pay." The guard lunged, but Ryan was faster, disarming him with a swift strike and pinning him to the floor. Vic bolted for the duffel, grabbing a hidden revolver, but Ryan was on him, wrenching the gun away and slamming Vic against a crate. "You thought you could ruin me and run?" Ryan growled, his fist cocked. Vic, gasping, pleaded. "Julia wanted it. She came to me." Ryan's eyes blazed, but his discipline held. "Blame her all you want. You're the snake." He zip-tied Vic's wrists, tossing him to the ground as Nick's voice crackled in his ear. "Feds are here. Get out." Ryan dragged Vic outside as FBI agents swarmed, their lights cutting through the rain. "Victor Randall, you're under arrest for wire fraud, tax evasion, and bribery," an agent barked, cuffing him. Vic's eyes met Ryan's, a mix of fear and defiance, but Ryan turned away, his mission complete. Nick, watching from the shadows, nodded. "You good?" Ryan exhaled, the weight of months lifting. "Yeah, for now." He climbed into his truck, the warehouse fading in his rearview as Vic was shoved into a van. Back in Cedar Ridge, the Pinewood Grill hummed with fresh gossip. "Heard the feds nabbed Vic in Denver," a waitress said, pouring coffee. "Ryan Kessler set him up, hero move." Locals nodded, their respect for Ryan cemented. Julia, holed up in a motel after losing her home to foreclosure, saw the news on a grainy TV. Cedar Ridge tycoon arrested. Her heart sank, knowing Vic's fall was Ryan's doing. She'd surrendered custody, but Mason and Lily's rejection haunted her. A text from Diane arrived. "Ryan's open to supervised visits. Call me." Julia stared, tears falling, unsure if she could face her kids. Ryan, in his new rental with Mason and Lily, sat at the dinner table, their laughter over pizza, a fragile step toward healing. Mason, quieter since the hearing, said, "You really got Vic, Dad?" Ryan nodded, his voice steady. "He can't hurt us anymore." Lily smiled, her violin case nearby. "Can we stay here for good?" Ryan's throat tightened. "This is home, kiddo." He texted Diane, "Vic's down. Focus on Julia's case now." Diane replied, "She's cooperating." "You won, Ryan. Rest." But Ryan knew. Rest was distant as kids' scars ran deep, and Julia's redemption, if it came, was theirs to judge. The first snow of winter dusted Cedar Ridge's streets, blanketing the town in a quiet that felt like renewal. Ryan Kessler stood on the porch of his new rental home, a modest 2-story on the edge of town, watching Mason and Lily toss snowballs in the yard. It was a week since his confrontation with Vic Randall in a Denver warehouse, where the FBI arrested Vic for fraud, bribery, and tax evasion, ending his reign as Cedar Ridge's untouchable tycoon. Ryan's war sparked by Julia Bennett's email betrayal in Kandahar, fueled by her affair with Vic, and their plot to steal his kids and fortune had culminated in victory. But as Mason's laugh echoed and Lily sculpted a lopsided snowman, Ryan knew the real battle was here, rebuilding his family's trust, stitch by fragile stitch. Inside, the house smelled of pine and pizza, a far cry from the sterile Elk Lodge motel where Ryan had waged his shadow campaign. Mason, now 17, sprawled on the couch, scrolling wrestling stats on his phone, his guarded demeanor softening day by day. Lily, 15, practiced her violin in the corner, the notes of Silent Night filling the room with cautious hope. Ryan had won temporary custody after the kids' damning court testimonies exposed Julia's lies and Vic's crimes, but the scars of her betrayal lingered. "Dad, you joining us for the town tree lighting?" Lily called, her smile tentative but real. Ryan nodded, his heart swelling. "Wouldn't miss it, kiddo." Cedar Ridge had embraced Ryan as a hero. At the Pinewood Grill, locals slapped his back, saying, "You took down that snake Randall." The Ridge Gazette ran a front-page story. "Kessler reclaims family, Randall faces decades." Diane Ellison, Ryan's lawyer, had tied up the legal loose ends. Vic's assets were seized, reimbursing Ryan's stolen $1.2 million, and Julia faced a civil suit for financial misconduct. Diane called that morning, her voice crisp. "Julia's plea deal keeps her out of jail, but she's bankrupt. She's agreed to therapy and supervised visits. Your call on when the kids see her." Ryan stared at Mason and Lily, their laughter, a fragile shield. "Not yet," he said. "They need time." Julia, exiled to a cramped apartment in Boulder, sat alone at a thrift store table, her designer wardrobe sold to cover legal fees. The TV flickered with a news recap. Cedar Ridge fraudster sentenced to 15 years. Vic's mugshot stung, a reminder of the lies she'd bought. Her phone held no messages from Mason or Lily, only a curt text from Diane. "Kids aren't ready. Start therapy." Julia's eyes traced a photo of her kids, taken during a Cedar Ridge fair years ago, Ryan hoisting Lily, Mason grinning with cotton candy. She traded that for Vic's promises, and now Cedar Ridge shunned her. The grill's waitresses whispering, she threw it all away. Julia signed up for court-mandated counseling, her first session looming, but the weight of her choices crushed her. She wrote a letter to Mason and Lily, words trembling on the page. "I failed you. I'll wait as long as it takes." She didn't send it, unsure if they'd ever forgive. Ryan, at the town square that evening, stood with Mason and Lily as Cedar Ridge's Christmas tree blazed to life, its lights reflecting in their eyes. The crowd cheered, but Ryan's focus was his kids. Mason, usually stoic, leaned in. "Thanks for fighting for us, Dad." Ryan's throat tightened, his hand on Mason's shoulder. "Always." Lily slipped her hand into his, whispering, "This feels like home." Nick Torres, blending into the crowd, gave Ryan a nod from afar, his work done. Nick's final report confirmed Vic's conviction, and Diane's team was monitoring Julia's compliance. Ryan's burner phone, once his lifeline, sat unused in a drawer. The Pinewood Grill buzzed with holiday chatter, locals retelling Ryan's saga. He came back from war, saved his kids, took down a crook. A barber added, "Julia's got nothing, no family, no money." Ryan, hearing the gossip, felt no joy in Julia's ruin. She'd face her consequences: bankruptcy, isolation, a long road to redemption, but his focus was Mason and Lily. Back home, he hung their old family ornaments, each one a memory of better days. "We'll make new traditions," he told them, his voice steady. Mason smirked, tossing tinsel. "As long as there's pizza." Lily laughed, and for the first time in months, Ryan smiled without a shadow. Julia, in Boulder, stepped into her therapist's office the next day, her heart heavy but resolute. "I want to be better," she said, voice cracking. For them, Cedar Ridge, miles away, moved on, its snow-covered streets alive with holiday cheer. Ryan, Mason, and Lily, in their new home, weren't whole yet, but they were together. Ryan locked the door that night, the snow falling softly, and knew he'd fought for more than justice, he'd fought for a future. The war was over, but the healing had just begun, and Cedar Ridge, for all its gossip, was their haven now.